Picture a city block so dense, sunlight forgets the ground. 33,000 people in 2.6 hectares. No taxes, no permits, almost no sky. Kitchens over clinics, factories above bedrooms, alleys so tight you can touch both walls with your elbows. It looks like chaos. So why didn't it collapse? And why did so many people call it home? This wasn't sci-fi. It stood in the heart of Hong Kong until 1994, a legal glitch that grew 12 stories tall. From outside, a black box. From inside, choreography. Pipes as street signs, aunties as police, a city that hacked cityhood. Today we're going in. How it started, how it worked, who thrived, who suffered, and what it says about the cities we build now. Roll back to the 1800s. Qing China builds a small coastal fort with a wall, the Kowloon outpost. Then treaties, leases, lines on maps that split hairs and neighborhoods. Britain governs around it. China claims the square inside. After World War II, borders blur. Refugees pour in. The walled city becomes a loophole with addresses. Officials stare at each other. Whose problem is this? Nobody's. Which made it everybody's. The rectangle fills itself. Shacks become tenements. Tenements become concrete. Then concrete on concrete. If your neighbor goes up, you go up, into them, or over them, or under them. Permits. From whom? Architects. If you could afford one, you didn't live here. How do you build a vertical maze with no master plan? You piggyback. Tie your beam into the building next door. Borrow a wall. Lend a roof. If it stands today, it can hold tomorrow. That was the engineering doctrine. The airport's flight path sets a hard ceiling, about 13, 14 stories, so the top flattens into one giant rooftop. Up there, sun, breeze, gardens and paint cans, kids sprinting between water tanks, pigeons claiming the only open sky. Down below, noon feels like dusk. Plumbing and power was DIY. Pipes crisscross ceilings, cold water sweating, hot water hissing, gray water dripping. Residents navigate by senses. Follow the fishy steam for dumplings, the sugary heat for bakeries, the metallic clank for workshops. Smell is a compass, so is sound. From the outside, nightmare. Inside, neighborhoods. Corridors 1 meter wide, neon shrines glowing, calendars taped to concrete. Doorways open, not for welcome, for airflow. Factories press plastic flowers. A floor up, a dentist files dentures in an unlicensed clinic. Another floor, a noodle stall boils from 4 a.m. to midnight. Apartments are Tetris, a bed over a sink, a TV over a shrine, a toddler's play space the size of a suitcase lid. But there's proximity. Work is 10 steps from your pillow. Schools, temples, churches, all stacked into the same cube. You can be broke and still be busy. Invisible to the state, known to your stairwell. Crime had a chapter. Triads in the 50s and 60s ran gambling and heroin. But the myth of endless anarchy misses the arc. Over time, residents did what cities do. Set rules. Aunties watch corridors. Shopkeepers know every kid's name. Cause trouble. And every eye becomes a camera. Soft power in slippers. If decoding hidden systems is your thing, tap subscribe now and comment Kowloon. I'll make part 2 with first-hand stories and a mapped walk through the original alleys. So, who kept it running? Everyone. Layered. Clan associations, church groups, and building elders. Micro-governments handling what mattered. Rule 1, don't block the stairs. Stairs are lungs. Rule 2, keep corridors lit. Split the bill. A dark hall is an insult. Rule 3, fire, bang on doors, herd up, not down. The roof is the square. Rule 4, building, tell your neighbors first. You need their walls more than your pride. Postal workers memorize routes by habit and humidity. Deliveries travel on backs, not vans. Disputes go to the oldest person who remembers 3 just like it. No court, but also no 8-month wait. Not justice for all, but resolution for most. So why stay? Yes, cheap rent, but density kills distance. Commute, 60 seconds. Customers, your neighbors. Make fish balls? Your market is the next corridor. Do dental work? Your waiting room is the hallway. Supply chains are staircases. Waste heat warms someone else's bathwater. Efficiency pulls people in. For newcomers, especially refugees, Kowloon is a starter kit. A room, a job, a cousin nearby. For elders, it's endgame. Everything you need within 50 paces. There's dignity and self-sufficiency, even when the wallpaper peels. Flip side, health. Moisture turns walls to moss. Sunlight deficiency isn't poetic. It's rickets. Stack 1,000 gas stoves, and you've mixed a chemistry set in the air. Fire is the nightmare that keeps everyone polite. Let's separate movie Kowloon from memory Kowloon. No law. Not quite. Few external laws, many internal ones. Informal enforcement makes daily life predictable. Pure crime den. Crime existed, especially earlier. But once families, schools, and churches rooted, the texture shifted from vice town to working class labyrinth. Unlivable. Harsh, yes. Unlivable. 33,000 people prove otherwise for decades. Survival isn't ideal, but it is a metric. The real shock isn't squalor. It's competence. You expect collapse. You You find choreography. By the late 80s, the gray zone fades. Britain and China negotiate the handover. Suddenly there's a they with authority. Reports call the city unsafe, unsanitary, ungovernable. Residents call it home. The state offers compensation. Arguments turn to appraisals. Rage to receipts. Evictions roll from 1991 to 1993. Some fight to the final hour, fridges braced against doors. Others leave early, grief packed in cardboard boxes. Crews catalog units with spray paint. Social workers map who needs help. Then excavators arrive. The maze becomes mountains of rubble. The pipes go quiet. In its footprint, Kowloon Walled City Park. Pavilions, ponds, curated memory where improvisation once ran the show. You can read plaques. You can't read humidity. Kowloon lives on as an aesthetic. Neon alleys in games, rain-slick chases in films. But it also lives as a lesson plan. Urbanists study its informal infrastructure. How services emerge without agencies. Policy folks use it as a warning. Ignore housing demand, and it will build itself anyway. Architects copy its rooftop city. The only public square was the sky. Technologists see a network metaphor, resilience through redundancy and messy interconnection. Most of all, it asks the question cities keep dodging. What happens when permission is too slow for need? It wasn't just buildings. It was birthdays squeezed into 8 by 10, prayer next to plastic presses, a grandmother who could find your door by the taste of the air, a kid who learned to ride a bike on a roof and thought streets were supposed to be on top. There's a famous photo: rain, wires, neon. A tunnel where it's always 7 p.m. The real city? Quieter. Chopsticks, tapping bowls, mahjong tiles, a single pipe dripping, forever almost fixed. Humanity isn't the skyline, it's the soundtrack. Kowloon proved two truths at once. People can self-organize a functioning city with almost nothing, because cooperation is a survival reflex. And almost nothing is not enough, because safety, light, and clean air are not optional upgrades. Call it a miracle. Call it a failure. It's both. A miracle of human competence inside a failure of formal systems. From above, Kowloon looked like chaos. From inside, it moved like a machine. Messy, negotiated, fragile. The densest place on Earth wasn't just about space. It was about systems. Homemade, hard-won, and, for a while, strong enough to hold up the sky. Want part 2? First-hand voices? An alley map from memory? And the rooftop city? Comment rooftop. Share this with a friend who thinks planning is the only way a city can work, and I'll bring the maze back to life, one corridor at a time.